and good morning, everyone. This is Arun, and today we will like to discuss in this 60 minutes about HIPAA, which is Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, which is there. Hope everyone are able to listen to me. Am I audible?
Yes, Arun, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what we are looking at is data from a perspective of health data, which is there. That is what a sense of HIPAA basically. And there are a recommended tool by ONC, which is Office of National ONC, which is there. And that office, basically, it is from US government competent authority, which looks after from the perspective of the healthcare information means data, how it has been assessed and evaluated, basically on that. So before going further, let's go to our agenda. We will have a HIPAA overview. We will talk about what are HIPAA rules which are there and how we can ensure our compliances which is there. So before we would like to know from our audience today. This is a question. Have you ever handled the protected health information within your organization, or you are having some experience with that? That will help us to understand the audiences we are having for today's session, and we will look forward for your answers. Mona Lisa, can we have the poll, please?
Sir, I have launched the poll.
Thank you.
I'll be closing the poll in 5 seconds now. Sir, I've closed the poll. I've shared the results.
So we are having from this poll, we are having around about 50% of people who are aware of how we are handling our protected health information, and half of our audiences today are not having information about it, how they are handling it. But it will be a good for them to understand how what we are trying to do it. So here it is. We will, from the, as I told earlier also, the HIPAA is Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, and it is an act which is which is applicable to the US market. So this is very, very specific to the US markets, what we are looking at from this particular act. So there are two distinctions, if we can see it here. We are having portability, the word which has been used, as well as the accountability which is there. So what are the goals of the portability? Portability is that if a person is moving from one job to another job, his insurance details or health related information related to insurance should get put. So this will help in that. The another one is to ensure that the the confidentiality of the patient information and data should be there, or we should ensure that. The another part is that we should have uniform standards which should be applicable when we are transmitting our data between the you can say between the financial system or between various healthcare providers which are there. So if the data is being transmitted from one provider to another provider, that should be in a secure or in a manner which is compliant to a standard which is there. So this helps that. So who are the players in this game, basically? So we divided this player, HIPAA divide this one into two major players. Actually, three are there. I will touch based on the third one also. So one is the covered entities which are there. So we will hear a lot about when we talk about HIPAA. Are you a covered entity, which is there? And another one is who is the business associate, which is there. So business associate, in a broader term, anybody is providing services to the covered entities are called as a business associates by definition, and they are also subject to HIPAA, which is there. Now, there is another one as there, clearing houses, which is there. It is not been listed, but we will discuss it. So what is protected health information, which is there? So any information where a person can be uniquely identified by the name, address, date related to individuals, telephone or fax numbers, emails, social security numbers, medical record numbers, health plan beneficiary numbers, account numbers, certificates or licenses which is there, any vehicle identifiers which is there, device identifiers which are there. So device, when we say it has, so it is devices which are being used by the medical devices or any identity devices what we are talking about. Web or URLs where the information can be stored and can be retrieved, which is there. IP addresses which are there, those are also accounted where we can extract the information related to the protected health which is there of a patient and can retrieve the identity of it. Biometric identifiers which is there, just like now there are a lot of biometric identifiers, just like the thumb impression what is there, or facial recognition something there. So those are the ones which are also called as a protected health information. Full scale images which is there, and other characteristics that could uniquely identify an individual. So when we are talking about an individual, we are considering that as a individual's health information. So this is what we need to consider it when we are talking from the protected health information perspective. So who are the key players in the US healthcare systems, which is there? Patient is at the core, as we know at all. Then there is a payer who pays for the patient, which is there. Providers who provide the services. So those are the healthcare services which are there, or the insurance services which are there. So those are the providers which we can leave it, where the direct payments are coming to that one. And we are having business associates which are associated with the players as well as the providers which are providing their services or sub services to the provider or payers which is there, and the healthcare exchange clearing houses which is there. So the clearing house, as I told earlier also, it is also a major player because those are basically the exchanges where the confidentiality or where the confidential health information is being exchanged, which is there. And who is controlling, means whom all they are, means we can say that whom they should be uh, paying attention to. That is the regulators, which is there. So US regulators are very much into, they are looking in a very, very detailed way, or what we can say, they are the ones who are much more concerned with that when they are looking from the perspective of a patient information. So the next question will be a hospital, how we can categorize that. I think now we can get some clarity that what categorization we can put a hospital in. So that is what we are trying to understand from the audience. Can we have the poll, please?
I close the poll now.
Right.
Sir, I shared the poll.
So as most of our audiences have correctly identified that that hospital is a covered entity because they are the ones who are handling the data of a patient or healthcare data directly. So they are not a business associate. They are not providing the services to the covered entity. So they themselves becomes the covered entity in this case, basically. And even the insurer. So as we have seen in the previous our diagram, which is there. So the major players who are interacting with the individuals or the patients, I don't want to call it as patients because patient is a negative word nowadays. So I'm calling them as a individuals here. So the individuals are directly submitting their data to the payers or the insurance companies which are there. They are providing the payers are providing some services to the individuals. So the covered entities from here are the payers, which are insurance companies which are there, or the health or the provider, which are hospitals or clinics which are giving services to the individuals for their healthcare related, and they are storing those data within their systems. Hope this will give a better understanding. And anybody who are providing sub-services or services to the payers and providers will become the business associates. And for the for information, means for the audiences, anybody who is providing the services and identified as a role of a business associate, they are also subjected to the HIPAA rules, which are there, not less than what the providers or the you can say uh, payers, what we call it as in US healthcare systems. So HIPAA rule as much important to the payers and providers, and is equivalent to what has been expected from the business associates too. So before before going to the next step, which is defining, I mean, what is the HIPAA framework? Basically, that's what we are trying to address it here. So here it is. These are the main components of HIPAA. What is there, or HIPAA rules? What we are having? We are having a specific privacy quadrant, which is there, security quadrant, enforcement, and breach notifications, which is there. So the PHI, what is protected health information, we call it as, that is written, oral, or in electronic form, that has to be protected. That is what the privacy rules provides that information to. So security is confidentiality and availability of the data, what we are talking from the ePHI or electronic health protected health information, what we call it as. So enforcement is the regulators which their what they enforces, reporting the violations to the regulators, supporting the investigations if they are there, and they will analyze and they will report or they will penalize the organizations which are non-compliant with the HIPAA rules and which requires that. So enforcement is which is there, where the regulators comes into picture, which is there. Breach notification is there because any type of a breach has to be notified to the individuals who are affected, as well as they have to publish also on a to the wider public also, that okay, there was a breach that has happened, and this is the commitment the organization is having to remove that breach, which is there. That is within the 60 days of identification of the breach, which is there. So let's talk from the because some of our audiences might be familiar with information security management system, which is there. So which is the standard? Another question, because we can normally we will map with that. So just to know from our audiences, which is the ISO standard, which is applicable from the perspective of information security management system. Because when we try to map it, some of the things, so it will be easier for them to understand.
Sir, I've launched the question.
Thank you.
I will close the questions. Question.
Sure.
Yes, sir, I've shared the results.
Yeah, so we are having a very aware audiences, what we are having. So as we said, information security management system is ISO 27001, which is the, thank you. Then let's look at how to ensure the compliances, what we are having. So as we talked about the 4 quadrants, what we were having from the HIPAA rules, which is there. So we talk from the perspective of, let's talk from the perspective of the privacy rules. So broadly, we divide our HIPAA rules into 2 quadrants, which is there. One is the privacy rule and another one is the security rule, which is there. We will discuss the security rule as we move forward. But what is the privacy rule when we talk about that? So it is information shared on a minimum necessity basis, which is there. So for what reason, what we are disclosing that? For healthcare providers, for treatment, it's bit natural. That has to, the information has to be disclosed. When the information flows from one provider to another provider. In India, at this point, we are not having such systems where we need the physical copies or the hard copies when we move from one provider to another provider with our reports and other things. But as we have, I mean, from 2009 onwards, what we can say in US, there is a much more focused on electronic health records, what they call it as EHRs, where the information or the patient information which is there are stored electronically and transmitted from one means one provider to another provider. And even even from the perspective of pharmacies, when they dispense the the medicines for a patient, those are also required by that. But by the way, we have talked about the clearinghouse. There is one clearinghouse which is there in US. It is called SureScript. I think that will give an idea, or people interested and can search on that. They are the ones who are transmitting the electronic information from the providers to the pharmacies electronically. So they are subjected to HIPAA too. So just a thought on the clearinghouse example, which is there. Disclosure to the patients, which is there. That is what means electronic health records which are there. The patient should have access to that, and what that is what the basic understanding is. So minimum necessity basis, we are providing them also. So disclosure has been explicitly authorized by the patients, which is there. For insurance companies, there is a authorization which requires explicitly by the patients that yes, insurance companies can look at my patient data, my data, which is my healthcare data. So those are the ones which is and based on need to know basis, what we have to discuss it. Disclose the HSS. This is a regulatory body or the enforcement body which is there. Human and Health Services, what we call it as, those are the ones which, if they want some information because of the breach has occurred, or they want to investigate some of the things, that information should be shared with them. Disclosure to the law enforcement, such as suspected child abuses, which is there. Disclosure required by HIPAA transactions, or administration simplification, which is there. So this is the major essence of privacy rules, the information which we can be shared. So notice of privacies, which is there. There is another part from the privacy rule perspective, how the organization will use this is what a provider, or what we can say covered entities. This is a mandatory aspect from the covered entities perspective, but for the business associates, it's not a mandatory aspect which is there. So what we are talking about is that a claim has to be published publicly, stating that how the organization will use the patient records which is there. So they have to declare that, and it should be duly available for anybody to review it. That means normally it's been shared on the net, and those are the ones where we can see some of the organizations which are having NPP with them. So duty to protect the confidentiality of the information. So that's what it states, that patient rights, if he wants to withhold or release the information. So those are the options which a organization should take care of that. How to file a complaint in case of he is not satisfied, then the information should be available. How he can proceed to the regulatory bodies which is there. Organize, designate a HIPAA and privacy security officers. So that is mandatory part from the NPP perspective. From the security rules, what we are talking about, this is basically what we can say the how part of it, basically how the organization makes the HIPAA compliant. The other ones are more from a perspective of the patient rights, which they should keep in mind, the organization which is handling the protected health information. The other things are how they are going to handle in a breach notification with the regulatory bodies. So those are the aspects which is the privacy rule expect us to do. But the security rule is what actually the organization implements. Just like the SOPs what we are having, they have to have the technical safeguards for that. Physical safeguard, how the location where the healthcare information is available, orally written or in an EPHI format, how that you can say location is physically safeguarded, and there are administrative rules which they have to apply, because that is where the management system will come into play, and that has to be so mostly when we talk from the ISO 27001 perspective which is there, this is where we will map most of our requirements to the clauses what the 9001 says here. So what we are looking at here is access control. I think the audience are familiar with 27001 which is there. So access control is we can map easily with that of the 9001, I mean it's 27001 clause which is there. Audit control, encryption, and authentication and integrity are the aspects which are the main purpose from the perspective of technical safeguards what we are looking at. So encryption is one of the aspects. We have talked about the clearinghouse or how the data is being transmitted. So we are looking from the perspective of not only when the data is in transit, we are also looking at encryption at rest also. So that is an important aspect when we look at from that perspective. Then we look at other physical safeguards. What are there? So physical safeguards are facility access controls, which is their workstation use, device and media controls, how we are handling, how we are. I mean, facility access control. It's very simple. It means we can directly map uh, with the annexures or of 27001 what we are having, where we also say that okay, the location is physically means there is no there are policies or controls are in place so that no unwanted person can come inside the premises, which is the workstation use, because if a person who is not authorized to look into the patient data, if he sees the patient data, that's also considered as a breach, which is there. So we look very strongly from that perspective too. And device and media control, which is there, how we are disposing the devices or the media where the data is at rest at that point of time. Because most of the times or the previous breaches, we have seen that there is some on the patient data is on some media and it has been thrown away without being properly discarded, and it's been I mean somebody has access to those data which is there, and that is what the risk of the organizations will have. To handle both the things, there has to be administrative safeguard. Administrative means the controls, what has to be in place. What we are looking at the standard operating procedures, what are there. So the processes, what we are having from the security management processes or workforce security, how we are, you can say, the persons who are handling the patient data, are they properly trained? Basically, they know what they are looking at. So all those aspects which we have to look into that. Asset management is another aspect where all the assets within the organization or that location which is handling the patient data, we look at from that perspective too. Awareness and training are the other aspects which we look from.
Arun sir, we are not able to hear you. Hello? Uh, Sorry about it. There is a outage due to which Mr. Arun Kohli has got locked out. Please give us a few minutes, please. We are very sorry for the inconvenience cost. Just give us a couple of minutes more, please, for to solve the issue.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hello.
Yes, sir, we can hear you, and we can see the presentation as well.
Thank you so much. And sorry for the inconvenience which has happened. It is because we are taking this calls from home. So there was a network issue which we have faced it today. So we were discussing about the security rules which are there. So we talked about technical safeguard, physical safeguard, and administrative safeguards which are there. So what is the expectation from these particular rules what we are having? So as we see here, we are having HIPAA security rule safeguards which are there. So they are categorized into two parts which are there. So the two parts are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Is it the correct one? Because
The security rule, yes, HIPAA security rule safeguard.
safeguards which is there, right? So that is the one which we
Yes,
are
sir.
getting. Thank you, thank you.
Yes, sir.
So what we are looking at here is we are looking from a perspective of two things which are there. One are addressables and another one is the required one. So addressables are those ones which can be implemented because the expectation is that please implement those ones. We can provide alternative measures too. When we talk about alternative measures, because this is very important from the perspective of information security management system. So we are having some of the things which are already placed in an organization because they are certified for 27001. We can map those one and say that, okay, these are the alternative measures which we have placed, or these are the controls what we need, we have placed it. So we are compliant with that. So we provide a rationale why we are having, and we can't implement that. So some of the some of the rules which are there, we can say that, okay, there is no scope of having such a thing within the organization, so we don't need it. Giving an example which is there, now a lot of companies are hosting their data not on the physical boundaries which are there. When I'm talking about that, they are moving towards the cloud infrastructure. So they are having cloud infrastructure rather than the physical infrastructure. So some of the organizations which are very, very small organizations, but needs to be compliant with HIPAA, what they are trying to say to us is that we are not having data centers with us, which is there, or we are not hiring the data centers. We are just instantiating our infrastructure on the cloud, what we are having. So physical safeguards are location not specific, because everyone is working in a remote place, and those are the things which we need to address it here. So we will say that, okay, please provide the rationale why you can't implement such a thing which is there. But some of the things are to be are mandatory, which is there, just like the security officer which is there. Even you are a small organization or a big organization, you need to have the you need to have a security officer, and that's applicable even to the business associates what we are when we are talking about that, which is it. Moving on to the next slides. Hope this will clarify that. So what is how we are measuring the risk within the organization? Because we talk from the perspective of what is the risk which is when we handling the sensitive information or protected health information what we are. So there is they have to simplify our understanding, the ONC, that is Health Information Technology organization, which is there, which is ONC, has developed a tool called Security Risk Assessment Tool. This is applicable for your covered entities, for your business associates, for your clearing houses, which is there. So everyone can use this one. Either it is a large, small organization, it doesn't matter that. It is not something tool which needs to be purchased. It is some tool which is available on the net and can be easily downloaded. And they are not means HHS is not means having control of your data. So it is within your organization, because it's been downloaded within your on-premise, you can do that. So that is what they are trying to do. So what is this tool is basically? So the covered entity business associate to conduct a risk assessment of their health organization. So the discussion what we had above about the rules, especially from the security rules, what we have discussed it. So they have a lot of questionnaires which provides the answer to the organization what level of risk they are having when they are handling the electronic protected health information, which is EPHI, what we call it as. Assessment helps your organization to ensure that it is compliant with administrative, physical, and technical safeguard, as we discussed in the our security safeguards, which we have discussed it earlier. Health information technology develops downloadable, as I discussed that, this tool to guide through the process which is there. So it's very, very systematic tool where they will provide what level of risk you are having, your organization is having, or when you are handling the PHI data, then what should be done. So it helps to healthcare providers to conduct security risk assessment as required by HIPAA security rules, which is we have talked about it. And for CMS, what we call it as Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services and Electronic Health Record Incentive Program. So all these programs by the Health and Human Services, HHS, what we call it as, if we are participating in that, it is mandatory for them to conduct that. So this will conclude our today's webinar. Hope you have got a sense of what is the HIPAA framework, basically what we are having, what is meant by a privacy rule, what is meant by a security rule, and how the security rule is divided into three broader part, what is we call it as administrative, technical, and the physical safeguards what we are having, and why we have to use the security risk assessment tool when we are analyzing our organization.